The evening air in Portland carried the soft chill of early autumn, and the streets glowed under warm yellow lights as people hurried toward home. Inside a small neighborhood cafe, the world felt slower. Cups clinked gently, quiet music played in the background, and conversations blended into a calm hum. Daniel Carter sat near the window, reading a worn hardcover novel while sipping black coffee. At 62, Daniel lived a simple life. After retiring from architecture 2 years earlier, his days had become peaceful but predictable. He spent mornings walking through the city, afternoons sketching buildings he no longer designed, and evenings reading in places like this cafe. He didn't come there to meet anyone. He came because the quiet made him feel less alone. Daniel had once lived a very busy life. Deadlines, meetings, and responsibilities had filled every hour. But after his wife passed away several years earlier, silence became a regular companion. He learned to accept it, though some evenings felt heavier than others. Still, he carried himself with calm dignity. His silver hair was neatly combed, and his posture remained straight from years of discipline. There was nothing flashy about him, yet people often felt comfortable around him without knowing why. Across the cafe, Emily Foster stepped inside, brushing cool air from her coat. She had moved to Portland only 3 months earlier after ending a long marriage that had slowly lost its warmth. Starting over at 55 had not been part of her plan, but life sometimes rewrote plans without permission. She now owned a small bookstore nearby, trying to rebuild not only her career but also her sense of self. Most days she stayed busy enough to avoid thinking about loneliness, but evenings were harder. That night she entered the cafe, hoping for comfort in something simpler, cup of tea and a quiet place to sit. Emily ordered chamomile tea and looked around for a seat. That was when her eyes briefly landed on Daniel. He wasn't doing anything remarkable. He simply sat reading, completely at ease. Yet something about his presence slowed her thoughts. She couldn't explain it, so she quickly looked away and walked to a nearby table. She told herself she was only tired, that she noticed him by accident. Still, curiosity lingered. Daniel turned a page carefully, pausing now and then to look outside the window as if watching memories pass by with the falling leaves. When the young barista accidentally knocked over a cup behind the counter, a loud clatter broke the calm atmosphere. Several customers sighed in irritation, but Daniel looked up with gentle concern instead of annoyance. He offered the barista a reassuring smile, silently telling her mistakes were normal. Emily noticed that moment clearly. His eyes softened in a way she rarely saw any more kind, patient, understanding. Those eyes didn't rush or judge. They simply observed the world with acceptance. Emily realized she was watching him again. There was depth in his expression, as though life had shaped him carefully rather than hardened him. The fine lines around his eyes didn't make him look old. They made him look experienced. She wondered what stories lived behind them. Had he traveled? Loved deeply? Faced loss? Something about those quiet questions drew her attention more than she expected. She lifted her teacup but barely tasted it, distracted by small details she normally ignored in strangers. Daniel adjusted his glasses and rested his hands on the table. His hands were strong yet calm, marked by age but steady. They moved slowly, never restless. Emily noticed how carefully he handled his book, as though respecting it. Those hands suggested patience, the kind developed through years of responsibility. She imagined him designing buildings, guiding teams, solving problems with quiet focus. Without realizing it, she felt a sense of trust toward a man she had never spoken to. Outside, rain began lightly tapping against the windows, creating a cozy atmosphere inside the cafe. Daniel closed his book for a moment and watched the rain fall. The reflection of streetlights shimmered across the glass. And for a brief second, loneliness crossed his face before disappearing behind calm composure. Emily noticed that too. It was subtle, almost invisible, but familiar. She recognized the expression because she carried the same feeling herself, the look of someone who had learned to live with absence. A group of younger customers entered loudly, laughing and taking selfies near the counter. Their energy filled the room, but Daniel remained unaffected. He simply shifted slightly to give them space, returning to his reading without irritation. There was confidence in his stillness. He didn't compete for attention. He didn't need to. Emily found that strangely attractive. In her younger years, attraction often meant excitement and noise. Now she realized peace felt more powerful. As time passed, Emily tried focusing on her phone, but her attention kept drifting back. Daniel eventually finished his coffee and stood up. When he arose, Emily noticed how straight he stood. His shoulders were broad, not in a youthful, athletic way, but in a grounded, reliable manner. They suggested strength shaped by responsibility rather than appearance. He moved slowly, yet confidently, like someone comfortable in his own pace of life. Watching him, Emily felt an unexpected sense of safety, a feeling she had not associated with attraction in many years. Daniel walked toward the counter to pay. While waiting, he helped an elderly man pick up a dropped scarf without hesitation. The action was small and natural, performed without seeking praise. Emily watched carefully, realizing kindness revealed itself most clearly in ordinary moments. Something warm stirred inside her chest, surprising her. She had promised herself not to notice men again, not to invite complicated emotions back into her life. Yet here she was, observing details she once ignored. When Daniel turned to leave, he passed by Emily's table. Their eyes met briefly. Up close, his expression carried gentle openness rather than confidence meant to impress. He nodded politely. "Good evening," he said in a calm voice. Emily returned the greeting, slightly caught off guard by how natural the interaction felt. His voice held warmth, steady and respectful. It lingered in her thoughts even after he walked toward the door. As Daniel stepped outside, the cool evening air wrapped around him. He paused beneath the cafe light, putting on his coat before walking down the street. Emily watched through the window longer than she intended. The rain reflected around him as he disappeared into the quiet city night. She looked back at her tea, suddenly aware of an unfamiliar feeling, curiosity mixed with gentle excitement. It wasn't intense or overwhelming. It was soft, like the beginning of a story not yet written. She found herself wondering where he lived, what books he loved, whether he always visited on Thursdays. The thought surprised her enough to make her laugh quietly at herself. Emily finished her tea slowly, replaying the small moments she had witnessed, the kindness in his eyes, the steadiness of his hands, the quiet strength in his posture. None of it was dramatic, yet together those details created something meaningful. She realized attraction at this stage of life felt different. It wasn't about perfection or appearance. It was about character revealed through small actions. Outside, the rain softened into a gentle drizzle. Emily stood, gathered her coat, and stepped toward the door. For a moment, she looked down the street where Daniel had walked, half expecting to see him again. Of course he was gone. Still, the evening felt lighter than before. As she walked home, she noticed the city differently, the warm lights in apartment windows, couples sharing umbrellas, strangers smiling politely as they passed. Something inside her had shifted. Perhaps it was hope, quiet and cautious, returning after a long absence. Daniel, meanwhile, walked several blocks away, unaware that anyone had noticed him at all. He believed the evening had been ordinary, just another peaceful visit to his favorite cafe. Yet somewhere behind him, a new connection had quietly begun without words. Neither of them knew that this simple night would soon lead to another meeting, another conversation, and the possibility of change neither had expected. For now, they returned to their separate lives, carrying only a faint memory of a stranger's presence. But sometimes the smallest moments, a glance, a smile, a quiet kindness, become the first page of something much larger. And as the autumn leaves continued to fall across Portland's streets, fate slowly prepared to bring their paths together again. Turning an ordinary evening into the beginning of a story neither heart was ready to forget. A week passed quietly in Portland, but the memory of that calm evening stayed with Emily Foster longer than she expected. She focused on her bookstore during the day, arranging novels on wooden shelves, greeting customers, and recommending stories she loved. The shop had slowly become her safe place. Still, every afternoon around the same hour, her thoughts drifted back to the cafe down the street. She told herself it was just a comfortable place for tea. Yet deep down she wondered if she might see the silver-haired man again. That Thursday evening, the sky turned orange as the sun lowered behind the buildings. Emily closed her bookstore earlier than usual and walked toward the cafe. She didn't rush, but her steps carried a quiet anticipation. When she pushed the door open, the familiar smell of coffee and cinnamon greeted her. The cafe looked almost the same as the week before: soft music, quiet conversations, and warm lights glowing against the windows. Emily ordered her tea and sat at a small table near the center of the room. For several minutes, she pretended to read a magazine, though her eyes occasionally moved toward the door. Time passed slowly. Then the door opened. Cool autumn air entered first, followed by Daniel Carter. He stepped inside calmly, brushing light rain from his coat. Emily felt a small spark of surprise, though she tried not to show it. Daniel looked around briefly, recognizing the space the way a regular visitor does. When his eyes landed on Emily, his expression brightened with polite recognition. He walked closer and smiled gently. "Good evening," he said. Emily returned the smile. "Good evening." For a moment they stood in friendly silence, both remembering their brief greeting from the week before. Daniel nodded toward the empty chair at her table. "Would you mind if I joined you?" he asked. Emily hesitated only for a second before nodding. "Of course." Daniel ordered coffee and returned with a warm cup, sitting down across from her. Up close, Emily noticed the small details she had observed earlier, but now with clearer attention. His eyes held the same calm warmth she remembered. They didn't move quickly or nervously. Instead, they focused gently on the person in front of him. "So," Daniel said, resting his hands near the cup, "how is the bookstore going?" Emily looked surprised. "You remember that?" Daniel smiled. "I walk past it most mornings. The window display always changes." Emily laughed softly. "That's my way of keeping things interesting." Their conversation started with simple topics: books, weather, and the neighborhood. But the rhythm of the conversation felt easy, like to people who had spoken many times before. Daniel listened carefully when Emily spoke. He didn't interrupt or rush her words. His attention felt genuine, something she had missed in recent years. As the conversation continued, Emily noticed the fourth detail that often draws attention to men his age: his smile. Daniel's smile was not perfect or polished. It appeared naturally when something amused him, lighting his face in a way that felt honest. When Emily joked about how customers sometimes judge books by their covers, Daniel laughed warmly. The sound of his laughter felt refreshing, filling the quiet cafe with easy energy. Emily realized something simple but meaningful. His smile didn't try to impress anyone. It simply expressed joy when it appeared. That honesty made it powerful. Daniel shared small stories about his past as an architect. He spoke about designing homes, watching buildings rise from empty ground, and the satisfaction of seeing families move into places he helped create. He didn't brag about his career. Instead, he spoke with calm appreciation for the years he spent doing work he loved. Emily found herself imagining the life he must have lived: long days planning structures, late nights studying drawings, and the quiet pride of building something lasting. His hands rested near the coffee cup again, and she noticed the steady way they moved as he spoke. Those hands seemed connected to every story he told. As the evening continued, an elderly woman at a nearby table struggled to move her chair closer to the table. Daniel noticed immediately. Without making a big scene, he stood up and gently helped adjust the chair. He asked if she was comfortable before returning to his seat. Emily watched the moment carefully. There was no hesitation in his action, and he didn't look around for approval afterward. Helping someone simply felt natural to him. When he sat down again, Emily spoke with a thoughtful tone. "You seem very calm about things." Daniel smiled lightly. "I've learned that life moves better when you slow down." His answer carried quiet wisdom rather than advice. Emily thought about those words. After her divorce, she had rushed through many days trying to avoid difficult feelings. Daniel seemed different. He moved through life at a pace shaped by experience. As he reached for his cup again, Emily noticed the final detail that often attracts attention in men over 60: his posture and presence. Daniel sat comfortably, shoulders relaxed yet strong, back straight but not stiff. His movements were steady and balanced. He didn't lean forward aggressively or appear restless. Instead, his presence filled the space calmly, as if he belonged wherever he happened to be. That quiet confidence created a sense of safety around him. Emily realized she felt relaxed in a way she hadn't expected. Conversations with strangers often required effort, but this one felt natural. They spoke about favorite novels, quiet walks, and the strange changes that come later in life. Daniel mentioned how retirement had given him time to think about things he once ignored. Life becomes clearer after 60, he said thoughtfully. You stop worrying about impressing people. Emily nodded slowly. I think I'm starting to understand that. The cafe gradually became quieter as customers left for the night. Rain tapped softly against the windows again, creating a peaceful background sound. Emily noticed how comfortable the silence between them felt. They didn't rush to fill every quiet moment with words. After a while, Daniel checked his watch gently. I should probably head home soon, he said. Emily felt a small wave of disappointment, though she tried to hide it. The conversation had passed quickly, much faster than she expected. Daniel noticed her expression and paused for a moment before speaking again. I've enjoyed talking with you, he said. It's nice to meet someone who appreciates quiet evenings. Emily smiled softly. I enjoyed it too. Daniel stood and put on his coat, then hesitated slightly as if considering something important. Finally, he spoke again. Would you like to take a walk sometime this weekend? Kay asked. There's a park nearby that looks beautiful in autumn. The invitation surprised Emily. For a moment, her thoughts filled with memories of the past moments of trust that had ended in disappointment. Starting something new felt uncertain. Yet when she looked at Daniel, she saw the same calm kindness she had noticed from the beginning. His eyes waited patiently, not demanding an answer. Emily realized that attraction now felt different from when she was younger. It wasn't driven by excitement alone. It came from observing character, patience, and warmth. She nodded gently. Yes, I would like that. Daniel's smile returned, warm and genuine. Saturday afternoon? Saturday works, Emily replied. They walked toward the cafe door together. The night air outside felt cool and fresh after the warm room inside. Streetlights reflected off the wet pavement, creating soft golden patterns along the sidewalk. For a moment they stood there, adjusting their coats before heading in different directions. Good night, Emily, Daniel said. Good night, Daniel. They both began walking down the quiet street. Emily glanced back once and saw him moving steadily under the streetlights, his figure calm and confident against the autumn evening. She realized something unexpected hope had quietly returned to her life. Daniel walked home with a similar feeling. The evening had been simple, yet meaningful. He hadn't planned to meet anyone new when he first visited that cafe months earlier. But life sometimes offered new chapters when people least expected them. As the rain faded and the clouds slowly cleared, both Emily and Daniel continued toward their homes, each carrying the memory of the conversation they had just shared. Neither of them knew exactly where this connection might lead, but they both understood one important truth. Sometimes the most meaningful relationships begin not with loud excitement, but with calm understanding. And on that quiet Portland night, two people who had already lived many years discovered that life could still surprise them with something gentle, hopeful, and real.